Live from Washington, D.C., Jay Sekulow Live. Phone lines are open for your questions right now. And now, Chief Counsel for the American Center for Law and Justice, Jay Sekulow.
Hey everybody, welcome for the broadcast. And we are following up on what we started discussing yesterday. And that is, we have been digging deep into what we're called the deep state. It's called the deep state because there are these bureaucrats that are entrenched. And we hit the issue yesterday. We talked about our case involving, of course, the Loretta Lynch, Hillary Clinton matter. And that one opened up, and that, of course, became a really big case because now the FBI is reopening its FOIA investigation. So that was a big development. We talked a little bit about the one in Israel where you had the government, basically, of the United States taking your taxpayer money to send it over to organizations that were campaigning to defeat the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Do you remember the Iran deal that President Obama put in place? That was the so-called stopping the nuclear developments of Iran. It involved $1.5 billion of cash delivered to the Iranians. But there was a very interesting development in all of that when there was a video about what took place on that deal. And a video had been put out. And then and our friend James Rosen from Fox News went back and realized that his video where he gave the interview and was doing the interview and put the piece together was edited. Remember that one, Jordan? That is what I want to focus on because we got an order on that case.
That's right. And so in the order itself, they did a State Department internal investigation. We got that investigation, and here I'm reading from the evidence of purposeful editing. So they edited it on purpose. A technician from PA recalled having received a request to edit the video over the phone from a female caller from elsewhere in PA Public Affairs who could credibly assert that an edit should be made. Given the passage of time, the technician's memory was imperfect, and the technician, I mean, this is hard to believe, but this is what they said, did not recall the identity of the caller, and the department has been unable to ascertain it independently through interviews or document review of who made the request to edit this video.
And the edit took out the key part of what was going on.
Right.
And Logan, I remember when it first broke, they said it was a technical glitch. You looked at the video and said that was not you knew exactly what that was.
No, yeah, it was essentially a white flash transition that you see in news pieces or you see in general. But, it's a transition it's a setting on your computer. Someone had to go in, place it in and out, cut and add in a transition. It could not have been unintentional. Now, could it have corrected a problem? Was something happened with the tape? Possibly, but it certainly wasn't just a glitch. This was clearly something specifically done intentionally.
So we now know it was an intentional edit because why? Well, we went to federal court. Document production is now complete. The state made 5 productions totaling 750 pages of records. Documents produced were heavily redacted, but we did get the internal report that they unclassified. One document contained redactions pursuant to a presidential communication privilege, which means the White House was involved in this. This email exchange is between State Department officials and National Security Council officials regarding a reporter's inquiry, RE, state officials' secret meeting with Iran officials. So how about that one? State Department, White House, National Security Council, editing videos to keep it from the American public. We're going to come back from the break. We're taking your calls on the deep state, your questions, your comments, your concerns about it. 1-800-684-3110. That's 1-800-684-3110. It's also Friday, so we're going to wrap up the news for the week here, but we'll take your comments on the issues that are concerned to you. But how do you feel about this one, folks, on the Iran deal? Purposeful editing, including an exemption privilege, a presidential communication privilege asserted in the Iran case. They have the right to do it, but what does that tell you? The White House was fully involved. All right, we're getting ready to go to break. Remember, we've got to take your calls and comments when we come back. This investigation of Loretta Lynch needs to be going forward. What took place in that tarmac, frankly, and as we're getting into it, inexplicable. We're working hard on it on our end, but we want the federal government to do its job as well. You can sign that petition at ACLJ.org or add your name at 1-877-989-2255. That's 877-989-2255 or ACLJ.org.
Former Obama Attorney General Loretta Lynch meddled in the FBI's investigation of Hillary Clinton. She instructed the FBI director to call the criminal investigation, quote, a matter. Even worse, she held a secret closed-door meeting on a government plane with former President Bill Clinton, while Lynch's Department of Justice conducted a criminal investigation of his wife. Lynch violated federal regulations. She broke DOJ directives and ethics rules. Now the Senate Judiciary Committee has launched an investigation into the former Obama AG's corrupt actions. We've started our own investigation at the ACLJ, filing a major lawsuit against the Lynch DOJ over evidence of her unethical and deceitful actions. Demand truth and accountability with us. Add your name to our petition. It's time to hold Lynch accountable. Call now 1-877-989-2255. That's 1-877-989-2255, or add your name online, aclj.org.
So we're talking about our deep state cases. I wanted to end the week on this. We only got to hit a few of them yesterday. And one of them is significant because it involves the State Department. Now, let me play for you some sound. This is between Jen Psaki, who was then the State Department representative spokesperson, and our friend James Rosen for Fox News. Take a listen.
James, I have no new information for you today on the timing of when there were any discussions with any Iranian officials.
Let me try it one last way,
Okay.
Jen, and I appreciate your indulgence.
Sure.
Is it the policy of the State Department where the preservation of the secrecy of secret negotiations is concerned to lie in order to achieve that goal?
James, I think there are times where diplomacy needs privacy in order to progress. This is a good example of that.
So let me put this in context, what happened. James Rosen uncovered with his excellent reporter skills, journalism skills, that in fact, despite the fact that the administration had said they began discussions with the Iranians regarding this whole nuclear deal, which has, by the way, been a complete fiasco, as you know. I mean, just a total fiasco. And the President Trump's having to deal with it right now. You got an Iran about to be, is moving towards nuclearization moment by moment. But what happened was their narrative was that they started these negotiations when Rouhani was elected president because he was more moderate than Ahmadinejad. But the actual interviews showed that the date of that, and that's what they edited out here, was, in fact, during the regime of Ahmadinejad, who was the most radical of their presidents.
Yeah, so that they were actually negotiating with a very radical leader in Iran. It's not to say that Rouhani's not a radical leader. They're all backed by the Ayatollah. But Ahmadinejad himself was particularly radical, and the Obama administration did not want the American people to know that they were in direct discussion and dialogue with Ahmadinejad's government on this nuclear deal. So they edited it out. I mean, that's what you saw. And again, first they were told it was a technical glitch. It was clear it was not. And ultimately, through their own internal investigation that we then uncovered publicly, it was clearly made that someone in the technical department, the video department, got a call from someone in the public affairs department. No one has ever taken ownership for that phone call, but they have not denied that it happened. And they were told to edit that part of the video that the American people would see. So you only saw that clip. It never made it out there, right? So the clip itself, because it was not live coverage.
So, no, it did not. So here's what happened here, and I think this is important for everybody to understand, that the issue that is so significant on this is the fact that this edit was intentional, and again, it was to deceive the American people as to what happened. Here's why we want to know now, though. Are those people that were doing all of this still inside the State Department? In other words, the people that authorized this altering of the video, which resulted in, without question, this retelling of the story on what actually happened here, are those people still in place in our federal government? Are we still paying them? That's what we want to know.
Well, and just imagine if this happened under the current administration. If they were editing press statements, editing again reporters' questions, and then releasing it and blaming videos on tech problems, they would never get away with it in the Trump administration. Yet the Obama administration, this was a blip that barely got covered at all by if it did it, I don't even remember this being covered by the mainstream media.
So here's the question I think we want to ask. No, it got very little coverage. Here's the question we want to ask our audience as we wrap up the week here. How concerned are you about leftovers from previous administrations and the impact that they could have on this administration, the current administration moving forward on policies, whether it's in the State Department, the Department of Justice, the IRS, wherever. How big of an issue is this issue, what we call the deep state, these leftovers that are hanging on, or these career bureaucrats? Is this an issue that you're concerned about? We'll take your calls and comments at 1-800-684-3110. That's 800-684-3110. Now, remember this also. We have right now 7 cases involving various agencies of the federal government. One of those includes the State Department as it relates to the Clinton Foundation. And the amount of interchange that was going on between the Clinton Foundation and the State Department, I think it's fair to say, based on the information we now have, Jordan, that the State Department the Clinton Foundation was the shadow government of the State Department.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we saw, is that the Clinton Foundation was basically making requests into the State Department and vice versa on moving around deals, individuals, appointments, government leaders, government positions. So you've got economic deals going on. You've got basically the Huma Abedins working directly with the head of the Clinton Foundation as if they are all part of the same team. And in fact, people like Huma Abedin were making income from both the State Department and the Clinton Foundation at the same time through an special exemption that was given to Huma Abedin. So she was being able to be paid by both the outside Clinton Foundation and the State Department simultaneously. So the emails in the back and forth about appointments, meetings, basically it was pay to play too. To get meetings with Hillary Clinton, you had to have some connection with the Clinton Foundation. That was not so much the case then when Secretary of State Kerry came in. We saw a change there, and we can honestly even say that.
Yeah, no, there was. But there's interest. I mean, there's one we're just following up on now in one of our cases where someone that was running for the presidency of Madagascar was requesting a meeting with William Jefferson Clinton, former President Clinton, and you had the Clinton Foundation asking the State Department what they should do on this. So these are all interesting. All right, we're taking your calls, 1-800-684-3110. Yesterday, Logan, on the program, we were getting some emails that were saying, what does this actually result in? That was kind of the theme yesterday. And
I think a lot of people are just concerned. They've heard us talk about this now for years. Yeah. And I think they're just worried that nothing's happening. But they don't understand necessarily that these things take time. The government does not move fast.
No, but let me give you the example that I did at the end of the broadcast yesterday in case you missed it. For instance, we had a series of cases against the IRS and those that were involved in the whole targeting and Tea Party scandal in the conservative groups. That took 3 years to litigate. But let me tell you what did happen. The IRS of 2014, 2013, when the targeting started, is not the IRS of 2017. Because of the litigation we engaged in, it's a different agency. They can't do what they were doing before. Does that mean they'll never do it? No. That's why you got to be vigilant. But we have gotten court agreements or court orders from the Court of Appeals. We're still litigating in the district court because we want a permanent injunction that they never do this. But the fact is, the IRS as an agency itself, so I want you to understand the significance of these cases, as an agency itself is a completely different agency, not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but completely different agency than it was when we started this case 4 years ago. So that's where this, and Jordan, you talked about that yesterday. I think it's important to reiterate that. So these are, look, litigation takes a long time and getting results take a long time, but the entire agency was changed because of that litigation, or is being changed,
that's
I should
right.
say.
I mean, half the amount of audits, their budget has been cut significantly. Most of the staff in the exempt organizations division has been removed. Now, what would be interesting is to know who is in their place. These are bureaucrats, and are they people that, again, I think they're pretty scared now because they don't want to lose their jobs, their pensions, their incomes. They don't want to have to hire the lawyers that people like Lois Lerner have had to hire, and basically career-ending moves for many of that staff in exempt organizations. But that's not the only problem at the IRS. That was one that we were able to focus on because of the targeting of conservative groups. Those cases continue, by the way, including whether the depositions will be made public from individuals like Lois Lerner who have been deposed in other cases as well on this. So I think the IRS, though significant problems, needs complete reform, if not a total just change. No more IRS, and to do not just redo the tax code and the tax system, but to redo the agency that administers it. At the same time, I just want you to understand, we took it to the IRS. No one ever does that. And because of it, it's a very weak government agency that used to be the scary government agency, and now it's the weak one. And you could see that just in evidence of the audits that they are doing, the lack of auditing they're doing, and really the lack of, I'd say they're just not cavalier is probably a good way of saying it anymore. Right. They don't take that cavalier approach of, we are the IRS, be afraid. I think American people now say, yeah, you guys are a mess, and I can fight back against you. And that's the right way the government should be acting.
So, and remember this. I'm going to give you a flashback here. Here was the President of the United States speaking to Bill O'Reilly a few years ago when asked about the IRS scandal that we know now was a scandal. Here's what he said.
Don't you feel there are unanswered questions?
Bill, when you actually look at the stuff, there have been multiple hearings on it. What happened here was that you've got a 501c4 law that people think is confusing, that the folks did not know how to implement. Because it basically says,
so you're saying there's no corruption there at all? No.
That's not what I'm saying. That's actually...
No, but I want to know what you're saying. You're the leader of the country. You're saying no corruption.
No.
None.
No, there were some boneheaded decisions out of a
but no
office.
Mass corruption.
Not even mass corruption, not even a smidgen of corruption.
A completely false statement. Now, that was made in 2014, in February of 2014. It took 2.5 years to prove that President Obama was not only wrong and was a false statement, but that the IRS did have a whole problem with targeting. And now you got a judge saying to the IRS, lay it on the line, tell all. We don't know who did this, who was responsible for it, and what action's been taken. All right, we're getting ready to go to break. Remember, we've got to take your calls and comments when we come back. This investigation of Loretta Lynch needs to be going forward. What took place in that tarmac, frankly, and as we're getting into it, inexplicable. We're working hard on it on our end, but we want the federal government to do its job as well. You can sign that petition at ACLJ.org or add your name at 1-877-989-2255. That's 877-989-2255 or ACLJ.org.
Former Obama Attorney General Loretta Lynch meddled in the FBI's investigation of Hillary Clinton. She instructed the FBI director to call the criminal investigation, quote, a matter. Even worse, she held a secret closed-door meeting on a government plane with former President Bill Clinton, while Lynch's Department of Justice conducted a criminal investigation of his wife. Lynch violated federal regulations. She broke DOJ directives and ethics rules. Now, the Senate Judiciary Committee has launched an investigation into the former Obama AG's corrupt actions. We've started our own investigation at the ACLJ, filing a major lawsuit against the Lynch DOJ over evidence of her unethical and deceitful actions. Demand truth and accountability with us. Add your name to our petition. It's time to hold Lynch accountable. Call now, 1-877-989-2255. That's 1-877-989-2255, or add your name online, aclj.org.
We've been talking about a number of our cases involving the deep state. We're taking your calls. Let's go ahead and take a phone call, Logan.
All right, let's do it. Some people have been holding a while. Let's take some of theirs. Let's go to Bruce, who's calling in Texas. Bruce, you're on the air.
Hey, Bruce.
Hey, how are y'all?
Good.
Thank you for all the work that you do and that
Thanks.
you will do.
Yes, sir.
As you documented in your book, Unelected, these people are actually continuing the work of the Obama administration to, quote, fundamentally transform the United States, which is, in fact, to destroy it. And this kind of thing has been going on for decades. My mother used to talk about the fact that there really were communists all throughout the State Department during the McCarthy era. No matter.
No, I mean, that part was. Look, I mean, the history speaks for itself. Here's the interesting issue. I call it it's like an unelected fourth branch of government. And that these unelected bureaucrats are accountable to nobody. You can't fire them because of the way the civil service stuff is set up. So they go on in perpetuity. And what happens is it'll go after. You could have a Republican president, then a Democratic president, then 2 Republican presidents and 2 Democrat presidents, as if nothing in these agencies change. So what we're doing by exposing it, you get change. As I said, the IRS is already becoming a radically different organization than it was. Could not do what it did in 2014 in 2017. So that's a big agency. Jordan says it's one of the most feared agencies that we have. Yeah, I mean, it was. So now we got the whole thing going on with the FBI, and we're trying to get to the bottom of that nonsense. With not just with the James Comey side, but the whole situation with Loretta Lynch and Bill Clinton, and then the FBI telling us they didn't have documents, but now they do have documents, and they're opening it, but they won't tell us when they're going to respond. So this is how you do it, painstakingly, and Logan's reading the comments. I mean, it's not everybody going to jail. Let's be clear on that. It's fixing the agency issues, closing the leaks. I do believe that if you have leaks of national security information or leaks of any kind that are violation of the law, they should be prosecuted.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of to the point now where if within the next couple of weeks, Jeff Sessions better be announcing somebody getting indicted. It doesn't mean that they will be convicted yet, but it should be that the investigation is over and somebody's getting indicted. Because remember that whole press conference? We've had a significant amount of leaks. People do need to go to jail for those. And I don't want to make people think we're not saying that. When it comes to national security leaks, we've got to put people behind bars. When we talk about government agencies acting out of control, we're talking about reforming the structure and also getting the bureaucrats fired, removing them, not necessarily sending them to jail, but removing them from their positions, which takes cause, which takes exposing them. And they've been hiding behind in the shadows. These FOIAs bring them to light. It exposes who the people are. That court order from the judge, it instructs the IRS to say, you must tell us exactly who was involved in this process by name. And then what can the government do? Who's still there? You know,
right.
We know Lois
Find out
Lerner's
who's
not there and
responsible.
some of her deputies aren't there, but who else is still there? Because they can then be fired for cause without question by the IRS leadership and ultimately the Treasury Department that oversees it.
Let's take a call.
All right, let's do it. Let's go to Michelle in Indiana on line 5. Michelle, welcome to Jay Sekulow Live.
Hi, Michelle.
Hi, how are you? God bless you
Great.
for all the hard work you do. I just want to know, I wonder why they don't start charging people and treating them like drug dealers and getting them to start rolling over on each other. Because if we don't start doing it and making examples out of them, then it's just going to continue.
Well, look, you got to prosecute people when you think there is a crime that's been committed. So, you know, and a situation with the IRS, was there a crime committed? You know, that's a harder question. She took the Fifth Amendment, so her lawyers were concerned enough about it to do that. But there's a lot of reasons to assert the Fifth Amendment, so you can't draw a conclusion on that. But what we have to do in these cases, and as I said, we've got 7 in federal court right now in various agencies, is you got to proceed in a way to get a result which is ultimately to change the policy and practice of the agency. So this is, as I said, it's a slow process, but we've made huge progress on the IRS case. Look, I think we're making big progress on the whole Department of Justice and FBI matter. I mean, I don't think anybody can deny the fact that it is unusual, if not unheard of, that the FBI would reopen a FOIA inquiry, Freedom of Information Act inquiry, after they denied that there were documents in existence. And that was because we were smart enough to go after the Department of Justice, who showed the documents with the FBI in it. So, I mean, I keep saying I don't know of another case where they've done it. Maybe they have, Jordan, but it's pretty unprecedented.
Yeah. No, I mean, this is totally unprecedented. I've never seen, and you know, I haven't seen Judicial Watch, which files a lot of FOIAs either, where they actually come to you and say, we have nothing. It's one thing to say we have something, but we're not going to give it to you, or you have to take them to court to produce documents. But it's definitely something else to say, we have nothing, here it is in document. And then because of another FOIA that's released by court order from a different agency, the Department of Justice, the FBI having to come back and say, or any government agency having to come back and say, no, now we have to reopen your FOIA.
All right. Go back to the phones?
Yeah, let's go to Natalie in Atlanta, Georgia, who is our cousin, who's on the air. Natalie, welcome. You're on the show. You could text us, you know. It's fine. No, I'm good. Go ahead.
Logan said you could text us any question you have also anytime you want. But all right, go ahead, Natalie. It's Friday.
Okay. Yeah. I have a question since kind of for your younger listeners, college listeners who don't really understand the IRS, but we're taught in school, you know, all the powers of the government are supposed to be equal.
Right.
How did the IRS get all this power in the first place?
Well,
I understand that it's changed now, but how did they get it in the first place?
That is a great question. So the IRS is part of the executive branch, which means it's under the presidency. They are disproportionately, I would say, given authority because they're an agency. You know, the EPA affects everyone in one capacity or another in a more indirect sense. But the IRS can affect everybody individually, and it's an agency that have both civil and criminal capabilities when they bring things. They determine a lot of issues for both business, employers, employees, and individual citizens. And they have on the tax exempt matters, they are the agency that determines whether an organization qualifies for tax exempt status or not. And what the IRS was doing was violating the Constitution and statutory law as related to these conservative and Tea Party groups. And by the way, they sweeped up in this whole escapade that the IRS engaged in. They sweeped up groups that were not conservative, and Logan knows this firsthand from a friend of his, just because of the name of the organization.
Yeah, or just because what was on your website may have been had a quote from a conservative leader or a talk show host.
Yeah.
Someone that they may just go, maybe there's some even if it wasn't political based. So
it was
like an essentially anti-child abuse organization.
Yeah.
Nothing political, but it had a quote on it from just a conservative leader or author or speaker.
Right. That was enough for the IRS to pick it up. So that has been changed.
Years, yeah.
And we got that one. We got it resolved, as we did, by the way. And the end result, and you asked me, what are the end result of these cases? I said it yesterday. 38 nonprofits got their tax-exempt status recognized. That's going to do it for the broadcast today. Again, we want to urge you to sign our petition. We've got it up at ACLJ.org. We think that there needs to be a full investigation of what took place on that tarmac and an investigation of how that whole situation transpired without any. I mean, you've seen the documents we've talked about on this broadcast. I mean, now hundreds of documents, 400 pages of documents on this whole Loretta Lynch, Bill Clinton meeting. The American people deserve an answer. That's what freedom and liberty is about. You could sign that petition at ACLJ.org or call us at 1-877-989-2255. That's 1-877-989-2255 or ACLJ.org. See you next week.
Former Obama Attorney General Loretta Lynch meddled in the FBI's investigation of Hillary Clinton. She instructed the FBI director to call the criminal investigation, quote, a matter. Even worse, she held a secret closed-door meeting on a government plane with former President Bill Clinton, while Lynch's Department of Justice conducted a criminal investigation of his wife. Lynch violated federal regulations. She broke DOJ directives and ethics rules. Now the Senate Judiciary Committee has launched an investigation into the former Obama AG's corrupt actions. We've started our own investigation at the ACLJ, filing a major lawsuit against the Lynch DOJ over evidence of her unethical and deceitful actions. Demand truth and accountability with us. Add your name to our petition. It's time to hold Lynch accountable. Call now, 1-877-989-2255. That's 1-877-989-2255, or add your name online, aclj.org.